What's going on, everyone? So, we got news yesterday that Lauri Markkanen had signed a 5-year, $238 million contract. It was a renegotiation and extension, including $220 million of new money. So basically, what happened is he had the 1 year left at $18 million. The Utah Jazz used some salary cap to increase his 2024-2025 salary another $24 million, and then agreed on another 4-year and $196 million. That includes no options. Now, this is something that, you saw all of the conversations about potentially trading for Lauri Markkanen. The Golden State Warriors were the team that were most mentioned, that were heavily discussed and threw out offers. But the other team was the San Antonio Spurs. And now, Lauri Markkanen can't be traded, at least this season. He could be traded going forward, but looks like Utah's probably going to keep him. And at $40 million a year, he's probably not going to be as tradable in the eyes of some of these teams as he was right now at $18 million. Yes, you'd still have to give him that new extension, but you wouldn't have to sell the farm to go get him, right? Like, for example, the Golden State Warriors offered Moses Moody to go and land Lauri Markkanen. The San Antonio Spurs offered Keldon Johnson to go get Lauri Markkanen, right? But now at $40 million, you'd have to do Keldon Johnson and then some, right? So it just makes things more difficult. Also, his injury history, and on top of his injury history, right? This is a guy that has not played more than 68 games. Most games he's ever played in his career, 68 games. Second most was 66, which was 2 years ago. It's a guy that he just can't play 70-plus games. And I know last year people mentioned, he played 55, but it's because the Utah Jazz, they were tanking, so they sat him. They didn't sit him because they wanted to be bad. They sat him because he got hurt and were like, hey, instead of coming back this week, why don't you take another week or two off, right? Why don't you really make sure you're good? I'll tell you what, go take a little vacation. You earned it type thing, right? It was him getting hurt and then the Jazz not rushing him back, right? And then on top of that, again, it's just, he's not, like, being paid 40+ million, you need to be a number 1 or 2 option with the new CBA. I just don't believe he is, right? I just don't believe that Lauri Markkanen is that number 1 or number 2 option. But in this video, and of course, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below, begs the question of, should the Spurs have kind of pushed harder for Lauri Markkanen? Again, the Golden State Warriors were pushing the hardest, but they weren't willing to part with Pod and Kuminga, right? And the Spurs, they could have upped the ante as far as assets go, maybe some of the young guys, right, to pair Lauri Markkanen alongside Victor Wembanyama. Now, look, I am in the camp of, I believe the Spurs, if the right move is there, should expedite the process, right? Victor Wembanyama is so good, so fast, and he's incredibly cheap right now. If you're the Spurs, why not capitalize on that? Why not put yourself in a position to maybe, sneak in and get a championship or two before Victor really does become, that $40 million a year guy, which he will, and he'll deserve it at that point. But, it's just, to me, if the Spurs can find that proper move to really speed up the process here, then I think that they should do it. Now, again, keyword is the right move. Now, on the surface, Lauri Markkanen would be excellent for the Spurs, especially alongside Chris Paul, right? To just have him as a shooter, his efficiency shooting the basketball. The beauty of Lauri Markkanen is he's a guy that he doesn't need the ball in his hands, right? So he's not going to take away from everything that the Spurs are doing, right? He's not going to take away from Devin Vassell or, Stephon Castle or even Victor Wembanyama, right? He's a guy that is so plug and play, right? I mean, you could plug Lauri Markkanen on every team in the league and he would make that team better, right? Because he doesn't need the basketball. But I don't believe he was the right piece. Again, I'm open and want to see the Spurs make the right move for the right piece. I don't think Lauri Markkanen was that move. I'm not saying it necessarily has to be a Giannis or a Jokic or something like that, but given the circumstances of the situation with Lauri Markkanen, again, let's say you go and you pull off the trade for Lauri Markkanen. Yes, he's only $18 million, but you're going to have to pay him $40+ million. So now you're overpaying him rather than underpaying him. If he was willing to take, 20 or 30 million, or 25 to 30 million, then yes, I think that's kind of the range in which he's at. But that 40 million plus, I just think is too much of a price for a guy that, although is an all-star level talent, again, he's more your third guy than he is your first or second guy. And on top of that, again, his injury history is a huge thing that a lot of people kind of look past, right? And look, I would love to see more talent alongside Victor, right? I love the moves that the Spurs did, bringing in Chris Paul. I think he's just going to help not only elevate all the young guys, particularly the guards, I think he's going to make things so easy for Victor. I mean, I think Victor, I wouldn't be shocked if Victor is a 30-point-a-game guy next season. Like, honestly. I mean, he was 20 this season, and his rookie year, and I think Chris Paul is going to get him an extra 10 points a game just by getting him the basketball in the right positions and in the right spots, and just making sure that he gets the attempts and so on and so forth. Plus, I just think Victor will have his just natural progression from year one to year two. And, Victor Wembanyama alongside Lauri Markkanen, I think would be beautiful, right? You have 2 7-footers. Both guys can stretch the floor. Lauri Markkanen, his versatility where you can play him at the 3, you can play him at the 4. Wemby's ability to play at the 5, you could even slot him at the 4, right? To have those versatile 7-footers, 7-foot plus guys, and their ability to operate basically anywhere. The type of actions and offensive sets you can run, just that length and size, particularly protecting the rim. Lauri Markkanen being able to close out and use that length to his advantage. I love the idea of Lauri Markkanen on this team, right? Like Chris Paul, Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, Lauri Markkanen, and Victor Wembanyama, I think would just have been so tough. So tough. I think that's a playoff team. And I think, you get the right matchups, things kind of fall your way. Victor Wembanyama takes the next step. I think there was a genuine argument that Victor Wembanyama was a top 15 player in the league last year. If he moves into like that top 7 range this year, right? I mean, you never know, right? You'd be in the conference finals, maybe you stumble face first into the NBA finals. You never know, right? I don't think Lauri Markkanen would have made them a contender, but again, matchups, kind of the luck of the dice can impact a lot. But even with that, I just look at the pickups and acquisitions that they got in Chris Paul, Harrison Barnes, and I love the moves. And I would have loved to see Lauri Markkanen added to that and really kind of bring in that established just veteranness. And now you got both your wings solved. You got, your shooting guard and point guard and center. Like, I think it would have just beautifully put it all together. I just default to you'd have to pay him $40+ million. Now, could you argue because Victor's so cheap, you could kind of get away with it, right? Because Victor's so cheap, you can kind of overpay for a guy right now that you wouldn't be able to otherwise, right? That's kind of one of the luxuries of, Victor being so good and so cheap right now. But I also do think that that's best going forward, right? Because, again, I think you would need more and want more. And I just don't know if, Lauri Markkanen would have been that piece that it's like, okay, now the Spurs are top 5 team in the league or anything like that. Again, could they have a puncher's chance? I think it boils down to how good is Wemby next year, right? But, and then just the injuries, right? If the guy can't play more than 65 games, it's just you're paying a guy to miss, a quarter of the season for a team that would need as much production and on-court play and productivity as possible from him, because again, he would be basically your second, third guy on the Spurs, right? Victor's your number one, and then you probably have maybe Vassell or Markkanen. It's probably Markkanen, right? So he's at that point now your number two guy. You need him on the basketball court, and I just don't think he would have been on the basketball court. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think that they should have made the move for Lauri Markkanen? Do you think, no, they made the right decision? That would have been a bad move. Again, how do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are. Love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So if you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Now subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.